Hi guys, Elle here. So the first part of my little road trip got canceled because of this crazy hurricane Matthieu coming up the damn coast. Be careful down south, guys. Stay safe. We're still going, but it left me with a little bit more free time to do one more fun video before I head off. By the way, how impossible is it to pack, like, deck-wise for a trip? Oh my god, like, we're road tripping. I don't have to condense it down to, like, one deck for, like, an airplane or anything. Plus, I never leave home without at least one deck on hand anyway. But we're going with, like, there's a group of us, so I know we're going to be doing a lot of tarot reading. And this is my condensed packing for my trip. It's like 5 or 6 decks. That's all. That's minimum. That's what I got it down to. I'll show you guys what I packed after maybe, but it's fucking hard. Also, oh my god, look what came for a little light beach reading. Oh my god, I was talking about this in the State of the Seed. This is Foundations of the Esoteric Traditions, Tarot of the Holy Light, Volume 2. It's like this, by Christine Painteller. It's all like signed and shit. It's like a pre-publication reader's copy and uncorrected proof. She wrote in it. I'm so excited! So I'll be working on that while I'm away too. Amazing. But yeah, what we're here for today, I'm going to share with you guys my top 10 favorite tarot decks of all time. Now, actually, I kind of lied. I realized that my top 5 favorite decks of all time are the exact same decks that I would pack with me for my trip for the rest of my life or whatever. So those decks, my top 5, are actually in another video. I'll put a link down below to that. It was that, video response to Kelly Bear's, the top 5 decks you would take with you. So yeah, I'll put a link down below to that video, and I'll also put the names of all the decks down below, those 5 and the rest of the top 10 or top 15 here. So in the end, I mean, there's so many different reasons why a deck becomes your favorite, but for me, it boiled down to the decks that I use the most, go-to decks, whether it's reading for myself or reading for other people or just exploring the tarot, the decks that I reach for and just use the most is really what I'm sharing with you guys here. So when we left off in the last video, there were 2 runner-up decks that they were vying for that 5th spot in the top 5, and one of them was my Ansata tarot. I don't have the boxes and stuff out here, guys, but I will show you a few cards from each deck as we go through. But this is the Ansata tarot. I do have that's the backs. I do have a review up of this deck. Most of the decks that I'm going to share with you guys, I have reviews up for because they're like my favorites and I wanted to talk about them. But this is a majors only deck, and it's stunning. It's a favorite. Isn't it beautiful? It's got some incredibly occult and esoteric symbolism and imagery, and it all just really speaks to me. I would love it if there was a full 78 card deck for this, but it is just the majors, and that is just fine too. I use it all the time. Love it. So the other runner-up from the last video there is this guy, the Bacchus tarot. It's also called, this is the deck that has like a million different names, the Vandenborre tarot, the Flemish tarot, the Tarot de Flamande de 1780. But it's actually a reproduction of a deck that was originally published in, I believe it was 1770 in Belgium, and it's been released in several different editions at different times with different boxes and things like that through US Games over the years. And this is what the backs look like. I don't believe this deck is currently in print at the moment. I'm not too sure about that. I don't have a review up of this deck just yet. I definitely will do that soon, and I'll try and pull together all the information, maybe where you guys can find this deck, all the different editions that have been been released. Like mine even came with this very strange box that you don't see very often. I don't know if it's older or newer, no idea. I had a crazy time trying to get my hands on this amazing deck. Before I found this one, I had actually ordered a different version of it with more of that classic box that you see through eBay, and when it got to me, it was missing all the major arcana cards. I was like, what the hell? So I had to send it back, but I eventually got my hands on this one through eBay actually also. And there are just, oh my god, there's so many cool things about this deck. First of all, it is it's a woodblock Marseille style deck, but it is a variant also. So this is what your Hierophant looks like. It's Bacchus. Your Hierophant and your, here it is, your High Priestess are different. Sometimes it's like Juno and Jupiter in a lot of decks, but in this one, it's Bacchus as the Hierophant, and as the High Priestess here is something called the Spanish Captain, which we'll talk about when we review the deck. And there's so many really, really interesting things about this Marseille variant. That is, what am I looking at? Oh, that's the Sun card. Isn't that beautiful? There's so many really just fascinating differences with this deck. I love the Temperance card. How cool is that? Like the Hanged Man is upright in this deck. This is what the Moon looks like. It's one of those, the Moon and the Star are like astronomers, especially the Star. Look at that, it's a man and he's like definitely an astronomer. Isn't that magic? And then of course it's your typical, not really typical either. The minors are very interesting looking also, but they're like pip cards, like your Marseille. But another reason that I just adore this deck, the backs are kind of smooth. I know I've talked about this before, but the fronts, they feel like parchment. It's almost got that like Il Menicello, like you can feel the paper, and they feel old and just, that's one of the things I love about tarot. Sometimes it's so fun to feel like you're working with like an ancient deck, because I feel like you are when you're using tarot. It's an ancient tool, you know, whether you know, it comes from the Renaissance or the Middle Ages or whatever. I still believe that what's in the tarot is much more ancient than that. I think it's so interesting when people talk about how, you know, Attila and all those guys talk about it maybe coming right out of Egypt from like a great book of Thoth or whatever. And while that might not technically be true, I think it is still true. You know, all the stuff that's covered in the tarot is right out of these ancient mystery schools, right out of Egypt. All that magic and wisdom is in a tarot deck. And when I feel like it looks old, it puts me in sync with that old tarot vibe, and I just love it. And that's one of the things this deck does for me. It's pure magic, and it's very different than any other Marseille deck, this one. So all that history even is sort of comes through in the cards, you know. I love that. So it's a really fun deck to work with. All right, next on the list, my number 3 deck here in my top 10, top 15, is the Alchemical Tarot by Robert M. Place. And this is the more recent edition. That's what the backs of the cards look like. And I do have a full review up of this deck also. If you've seen that review, you know why I love this deck. I'm very much into alchemy, and man, this deck just gets it. It makes all those tarot alchemical connections, and what he's done with this deck is so, just amazing. It's a powerful deck. It's a beautiful deck. I love his artwork. The next deck that I am going to review, by the way, is this bone card. is his other deck, the Tarot of the Sevenfold Mystery, which is another just, it's an amazing deck. It's beautiful. I do want to also do like a side-by-side with the latest edition of the Alchemical Tarot and the Tarot of the Sevenfold Mystery. There's older videos. I think Angelo Nasios, it's a great video. He does a side-by-side of the older edition of the Alchemical Tarot and the Sevenfold Mystery. But I do want to do it for this deck too, because there's been a lot of changes. The coloring is very different. So yeah, it doesn't look quite as similar. The Sevenfold Mystery doesn't look as similar to the Alchemical Tarot anymore. And I think it'll be neat to explore them both. The Alchemical Tarot too, it's such a go-to deck for reading for anything for anyone, for myself, friends and family, clients, whatever. It's a very clear, succinct, easy to read deck. Fantastic. All right, next up on the list, another deck I have reviewed is the Rosetta Tarot. I do have the mini version of this guy. So I think that even made it more of a go-to deck for me because it's so wonderful to just carry around. This is one of the decks that I will just, that's the backs, walk around with. I'll keep it with me all the time. And the imagery is amazing. It's beautiful. It's very much based on Crowley's Thoth Tarot. And the artwork is just done in a way that it speaks to me personally, like just more than the Thoth Tarot does. But you can see the same astrologic associations, and Meleen does this deck, and I am a huge fan of her style of artwork. I feel a little bad actually filming this video right now because I am expecting, hopefully kind of any day now, her next deck, the Tabula Mundi deck. And it's just one of those decks that you guys know this feeling, I'm sure, when even if you don't have it in your hands yet, you know that it's going to be a hell of an experience. Like, it's probably going to jump into the top 10, no problem, as soon as it arrives. I get that feeling with that deck. I also feel that way with another deck that I'm all right, I lied. I'm not actually expecting it, apparently. I thought I had pre-ordered the Pagan Otherworlds Tarot, and I'm watching all these videos pop up of people getting their decks. I'm like, where's my deck? What is happening? Yeah, I apparently never actually placed that order. I had to go back through my PayPal and back through my credit card because I literally thought that I had pre-ordered it. I must have gotten all the way through to like my shopping cart and then just like got distracted or something and never actually ordered it. So I'm going to put that through as soon as I get paid. And then I will officially be expecting Pagan Otherworlds too. But that's another deck. I look at those images and I'm just like, that's going to be a game-changing deck for me also. Yeah, very, very excited about both of those decks right now. Next up on my list is probably the most recent deck that's in here. I've only had it maybe, I don't even think 6 months just yet, but it is the Orbifold Tarot. It's another one I knew before I got it. I'm like, game changer. I'm obsessed with sacred geometry, and this deck, speechless. It's a game changer. Let me show you some cards here. It is not in any way, shape, or form does it look like your typical tarot deck. And sometimes that is such a lovely break, you know? At first, reading Marseille sort of did that for me. It freed me, you know? It lets you just look and use your intuition. But I guess the same thing sort of happened with Marseille. You get used to seeing these things. And this really changed things up for me in a wonderful way. And geometry certainly speaks to us, I think, on a whole different level. Especially me, maybe, because I love studying sacred geometry, so I feel like I really connected. I already showed you guys that card. I just really connected with this deck, and I adore it. I do have the mini version here. By the way, sorry about this. I have been mispronouncing the creator of this deck. His name is Michael Bridge-Dickson, not Michael Bridge-Dickson, as I have been lovingly referring to him ever since I started my channel. Yeah, apologies. He is, as far as I know, not related to Emily Dickinson. I don't know how I started doing that. But also, he just announced, I was going to wait till the Tarot News video to share this, but he just announced it on his Facebook group, and I think in the newsletter or the website or something, that he is working on another deck. Get this, it's like a Marseille deck. It looks amazing. He's released a few of the images of what the deck is going to look like, and it's like mind-blowing. It's so beautiful. So excited for that. Anyway, that is the Orbifold Tarot. Also, working with this deck with other people, it's definitely something super personal, but I really enjoyed using it for other people also. They're just like, amazed by what they see too, you know? They find beauty in it, even though it's so simple, and just these simple geometric shapes. There's a lot of depth here with this deck. It's not a novelty deck. It's very deep and powerful. All right, on to my number 6 favorite tarot deck of all time. It's just tarot, by the way. I'm just doing tarot. And actually, you might not consider this a tarot deck. This is a Minchiate deck. I consider it a regular tarot deck also, even though there's some extra cards thrown in there. But this is the Scarabeo, Minchiate Etruria. And I actually don't technically have a review up for this deck either. We will do that at some point. I do have a video up about how I use Minchiate Tarot, so check that out if you are interested. I do have a couple different Minchiate decks, but this deck is just, I love it. It's so beautiful. And it's another one, it feels old, even though it has that kind of standard Scarabeo cardstock. I love how they made this deck a little bit smaller, so it's sort of easier to handle because there are so many cards. That's one of the minors. Not all the minors have some sort of imagery on them, but yeah, some of them are very simple, like this guy. But it's you know, it's not like a wood block. It's more of those what do you call it? Like an etched deck. Engraved, excuse me, like an engraved deck. There we go. Isn't that gorgeous? It feels old. I love that. Minchiate Etruria. All right, next up is one that I do have the review up also. It is the Decadent Dream Tarot. This is what the backs look like. And this is just a personal favorite. I actually don't very often read for other people with this deck, but it is certainly a go-to for me. One of the things that this deck does for me is it makes me feel like a fucking warrior goddess. Like, I find it so empowering. And when I need that pick-me-up, when I need that fight, that spark put back into me, when I need some good advice and a strong friend to turn to, that's this deck. That's the Decadent Dream. You know, some of the images are very romantic and soft looking, but on whole, it's just, I find it empowering is the best word that I can think of to describe how this deck makes me feel. It's like a compilation sort of a deck where the artwork comes from lots of different artists, all kind of from around the same time period. The Art Nouveau movement, the Pre-Raphaelite, the Decadence, all that sort of stuff is in here. And like I said in the review too, I mean, it sparked my fascination and my curiosity for all this style of artwork, which I'm now like really a huge fan of. But a lot of the paintings touch on spiritual ideas. They're representations of things from mythology and philosophy, and I don't know. I fucking love this deck. Isn't that beautiful? But that is the Decadent Dream Tarot by Eleanor Boyce, and you can find this in all of her decks. She's got lots of beautiful decks out at her website, knackfag.com. Such a fun site. All right, so moving right along, next up is a deck we actually just kind of talked about. It is the Medieval Scappini Tarot. Another one that it just, it feels so old. I love it. I love this deck. It's not in order, but there's the Fool. Has that beautiful gold in the background for the courts and the majors. The minors are all fully illustrated, and they tend towards this Atella meanings, really, in the minor arcana. So that's another reason why this deck is so special to me. Like, first of all, I love reading with it. I think it's very clear and just so much fun to lay out, and I love the way it looks when it's laid out. but it sort of did what the Jodorowsky Costa book and the Jodorowsky Marseille deck did for me, in that it was really my first grasping of a Marseille deck and what it all meant, and that whole experience of when you first learn something and are so passionate about it is sort of infused in that deck, and it's probably why it's another one of my favorites. And the same thing sort of happened for me with this deck when it came to really diving into like Atella stuff. I think the more classic like Atella decks, or what's that other one, the Book of Thoth, that deck, I like them, they're fun, but this, having the minors illustrated in such an amazing way, really helped me understand Atella meanings and really get in touch with that. I don't think that Atella is necessarily all about these cartomantic, fortune-telling-y meanings. There's a lot more depth there. He was still all about Kabbalah and astrology and all that esoterica kind of stuff. So it was just such a fun ride, really getting to know this deck and bonding with it, and it's remained a favorite for a really long time, and it's a go-to, the Medieval Scappini. All right, next up is a pretty popular deck, actually, and I feel like a lot of people are sort of divided on it, whether they love it or they hate it, and I am a lover of the Fountain Tarot. Look at those backs. It is such a cool deck. It's still very Rider-Waite-Smith, but it has this amazing contemporary modern feel to it that I just love. I think a lot of times when decks shoot to be modern and are set in like a modern contemporary world, sometimes I feel like it loses some of that mysticism that I like to still feel in my cards, and this deck has retained that in such a cool way. It's a cultural deck. I see a lot of interesting cultural things represented, a lot of geometry, which I really enjoy. It's a spiritual deck. It's a new agey deck at the same time, without relying too heavily on certain new age concepts and symbolism. There's no symbols scattered all over this. It's still a very intuitive deck, while it still retains some sense of scenic imagery. It's not, intuitive in the way that the Orbifold Tarot is intuitive, where you have no scene taking place. There's something going on in each of these cards. Look at that. And just the style speaks to me. The silver edging is just amazing. It's really a beautiful, easy to read, good feeling deck that still covers everything, the light and the dark. It's all in here. It's a magic deck. I love this deck. Fountain Tarot. All right, guys, the very last spot. This is rounding out the top 10/top 15. I did the same thing. I came down to like 2 decks, but I think it's the Tarot Noir. That's going there. Runner-up, honorable mention, was my worth decks. Like 3 in here. I think I have 4 worth decks. I'm not sure. But I so adore my worth tarots. I still am gonna make a whole video about all those guys. Honorable mention, sorry. I feel so bad leaving out decks. They do have little personalities. They're my babies, excuse me. But I do have a review up of this deck. Also, this is the Tarot Noir, or Le Tarot Noir. And it's another Marseille deck. Completely re-envisioned with all the classic Marseille features, like classic. They're all here. Everything is arranged the way it is in a classic Marseille deck. Even the majors, though they've been redrawn, reinterpreted. Look at that death card. In this dark sort of a way. interesting fantasy style almost that it has about itself. It's so unique, and it just speaks to me. It's a really, really fun deck to work with. Also has that beautiful gold edging. Don't you just love gilded edges? Just find another. Here's the Hierophant. It has French titles. The book is in French. Though I can't read it, but it's okay because I love this deck. Isn't that amazing? I almost, when I first saw the images online, was like, do I feel cold when I look at these images? I wasn't sure if it was really a deck for me, but I thought it was beautiful, so I hopped on it. And it was just so unique. And the more I sat with it and worked with it, I connected, I bonded. It gets at something a little bit darker without being negative, you know? There's your Devil. I always sort of think of this deck as like a Marseille Deviant Moon. It has a little bit of that quality to it. Beautiful. So yeah, that's it. That is my top 15, really, favorite tarot decks of all time so far at this point. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Stay safe, buckle down through the storm, ride it out. And I'll see you guys when I get back. Mwah. Bye.